Once again, the city that knows how is in the news, big time. This time it's about the Transbay Transit Center, our $2.2 billion railway, bus, and other transit hub that winds up having two cracked beams. Joining us this morning is San Francisco Supervisor Aaron Peskin, who's no stranger to the building woes of these kinds of projects. What's your take on this?
Oh, I'm not happy, Phil. $2.2 billion, you'd think you'd get something that's perfect. Instead, it's under danger of collapsing. Two beams that appear not to have been properly fabricated. It's just a nightmare, and to me it says San Francisco has to rethink the way it's delivering projects. We clearly do not have the protocols in place, and I have grave concerns about the next phase of bringing downtown extension Caltrain into the terminal. I don't think San Francisco has the ability to do it. We need to call in help.
What you're talking about is the part of this massive redo of the city that we're talking about is undergrounding a rail line from basically 4th and Howard area, even further down.
4th and King, potentially Pennsylvania Avenue.
All the way into the downtown.
Eventually to build high-speed rail.
So you say we need to rethink that. Are you saying that we need to put the brakes on it?
The entire Transbay terminal was overbuilt to start with. I mean, this cost $2.2 billion. The city of San Francisco loaned over $250 million. I'm the only member of the Board of Supervisors to vote against that loan. This thing has been a debacle. It is overbuilt. It is poorly constructed. On its roof, it's falling apart. It's collapsing at the bottom. The whole thing is a nightmare.
It was interesting. Before we had the beams crack, we had the sidewalk on the rooftop garden already crumbling. You know, it's interesting. The Transbay terminal, it's spectacular. It is spectacular. It's a one of a kind. It's an amazing structure. Who actually owns and runs this thing, and how did it get created? Because it's part of what we call a joint powers authority.
It is basically a partnership between San Francisco, Alameda, and San Mateo. It is a joint powers authority authorized by the state of California. It was the brainchild of our then mayor, Willie Brown, who actually retained an individual who walked into his office for open office hours, and that individual ended up heading up this joint powers authority.
Now, what I find amazing is that Willie Brown, who was always having these grandiose ideas, and he picked this person that literally walked into his office to run it, but then successive mayors, Gavin Newsom for 8 years and Ed Lee for 8 years, it continued. It was like nobody said, let's rethink this. Is there really going to be a railroad coming into underground San Francisco?
Oh, that conversation happened many times. I was in Gavin Newsom's office as president of the Board of Supervisors when I said it had to be rethought, that we did not have the proper personnel on the project, that they were completely out of their depth and out of their league. But for whatever reasons, Mayor Newsom chose to retain that individual.
And it consistently does that. No, these authorities, they don't answer to anybody, but once they get started, there appears to be no stopping them. There's 3 mayors, I don't know how many members of the Board of Supervisors, all around, and San Francisco is going to wind up picking up the tab.
Phil, it's been a total gravy train for friends, consultants, contractors, you name it, and let the money keep flowing. It has been a boondoggle from the beginning to the end.
Where do you see it going from here? We only have 30 seconds.
We need to call in international experts. We cannot leave this to the local yokels who have been screwing this project up from the start.
Aaron Peskin, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot more about this Transbay Center in the time to come. San Francisco's tilting Millennium Tower is in the news. This time, it's about legal fees that could go into the tens of millions of dollars and wind up coming out of taxpayers' pockets. Joining us this morning is San Francisco Supervisor Aaron Peskin. This involves the Transbay terminal next door, which has its cracked beam problem, and now next door is the tilting Millennium Tower, and questions about, did the building of the Transbay Center cause the tilt? And that's a big legal fight, and somehow San Francisco is going to wind up possibly paying the Millennium Tower's legal fees on this fight? we're going to defend and pay for the other side at the same time?
I don't want to put too fine a point on it, Phil, but it's not the city and county of San Francisco. It is this joint powers authority that is a partnership between San Francisco, San Mateo, and Alameda. But bottom line is, these yo-yos a dozen years ago signed an agreement, an easement agreement, that a judge has recently ruled means that the TJPA is on the hook for some amount of legal fees. Let me be clear. It is time for all of the parties to stop paying the lawyers and start doing a fix so that building does not continue to sink and tilt and crack.
What is the fix? Have they proposed one? We're talking about a 58-story tower that, for whatever reason, has continued to sink. The most recently, it cracked a window. It may have caused a cracked window. We don't know in the outside, which has caused concerns about the entire structure. And once again, we're up there. They're up there trying to figure out what's going on. So, what is the latest?
So there is a potential fix. It's called collaring the building. It would require digging up the sidewalks and disrupting downtown for a long period of time, but there is a potential engineering fix. The question is who's going to pay for it. The answer is do the fix now. You can argue about the money later.
So when you talk about collaring, you're talking about building around it, putting something around it in order to keep it straight?
That's correct.
Oh,
in essence.
In essence, and tearing up all the streets around it in order to do that.
Yes.
And for how long has this going to take, possibly?
I don't know.
Okay, you seem to be having a little bit of a poker face going on.
No, I don't know how long this will take, but rather than spending tens of millions of dollars on lawyers, which is what the Homeowners Association, the developer, and the TJPA are doing, it is time for them to fix the building.
And what is your concern if they don't fix the building?
Well, their experts claim it is safe for now, but we cannot, as San Francisco grows, have a building that might not survive a seismic event.
Considering the impact to all the city of something like this, financial and safety-wise, and considering that this group did not go down to bedrock with their foundation, has there been any change in the codes or laws in San Francisco about building in this area since we've discovered this, or are we just sort of ridden along as happily as ever?
So, Phil, there are many buildings downtown that do not go to bedrock. That's not necessarily a bad thing, or so the engineers tell me, unless they are as heavy as the Millennium, which is made out of concrete. We did convene a group of international experts, the Tall Buildings Initiative. They actually concluded their work this week. That's pursuant to a grant that I gave them a year ago for $250,000, and they've come up with a series of 18 recommendations that we will be adopting in the months ahead.
Okay, finally, the Joint Powers Authority that runs the Transbay, that's paying the legal fees, that this, to that, to that, and you said that you wanted to be clear that they're the ones that are going to be on the hook. Who is the biggest financer of that Joint Powers Authority? Who pays their bills?
San Francisco has deep pockets, and we have loaned them $260 million. I am the only member of the Board of Supervisors who voted against that loan.
Any idea when they're going to start paying it back?
It's going to be a while.
Okay, and meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking on all of this. Thank you, Supervisor Aaron Peskin, for joining us this morning.